pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Cinematic Traveler podcast. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, that's right, it's Wednesday night, so you know that means it's business time, as well as being our streaming surprise episode of the week. And on this episode, I found a film on Hulu entitled Things Will Be Different, directed by Michael Felker, a little time travel suspense thriller kind of movie, and I cannot wait to talk about time travel movies. You know those are always fun to talk about. But before I do, if you could do me a favor, whatever you're listening or watching this show on, somewhere there is a follow button or a subscribe button. If you could please tap that, I would greatly appreciate it, as it does help me and the show, but it also helps you because you won't miss any future episodes. And you can go back and listen to my previous amazing reviews of my sexy, sexy voice. Now you can see my sexy, sexy face. Oh boy, this is not good for a ham like me. At any rate, if you could share the show with your friends, families, enemies, annoying coworkers, anybody, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you could share it on your social media, again, I would be thankful. You can find me on social media. I am on Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. I am on X at CMT Pod. I am on Blue Sky at Cinematic Traveler something something something. I'm on YouTube now. That one is, I think, at Cinematic Traveler Pod. Somebody find that one out for me and let me know. I also have an email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com. So you have plenty of ways to follow the show and keep in touch with me. There, I got through all of that podcaster mumbo jumbo quick, fast, and in a hurry so we could dive into this episode. Let me ask you, how you doing, my beloved listener? Again, here we are in the middle of the week. We're almost there. The weekend is rushing headlong towards us. Unfortunately, it will go by very quickly. They always do. But let's stay positive on this episode. I hope you have big plans. I hope you're excited with all this new spring weather and all that fun stuff. So go outside, meet the love of your life, travel back in time, and try to stay away from Biff and your mother. Okay, is there anything else I need to tell you? I don't think so. I actually put up a new movie poster for you if you're watching. I know, it's sparse back there. Oh well, you'll just have to concentrate on me. How about that? I did dress up for you, so be grateful for the small things in life. Oh, that's enough of this witty banter. Let's go ahead and dive into our review for Things Will Be Different. As always, I do have to over-explain a few things. I am going to be giving you a spoiler-free review as well as a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden two movie quotes for you to find. And if you can, get in touch with me with the various means I have given you already. I'll give you a point for each one that you get right. At the end of the month, I add up all the points, and whoever wins gets to pick a movie for me to review next month. Or if this is your first time listening, well, it's still early in the month, so you can still get caught up. Or if you just tune in time to time, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you can still play along just to have some fun, have a little fun in your life. I know it seems a little uncool, but isn't that the best time of the week to be uncool with Chris? All right, well, I've gotten all of that out of the way. Let's talk about Things Will Be Different. Again, directed by Michael Felker. I had not seen any other movies he has done, only a few on his IMDb. So for the second episode in a row, this will be my first foray into his filmography. Now, we open the movie with Sydney, played by Riley Dandy, meeting up with her brother Joseph, played by Adam David Thompson, after they have pulled off a big robbery. Now, Joseph has been given access to a remote safe house where him and his sister can hide from the cops. What makes this house so safe? Well, I'm glad you asked. There is a special room in this house that when they enter and they make a call on an old phone in this room, they are transported back to the past. Now, the plan is to hang out at this house in the past for 2 weeks, re-enter the room, and travel back to the present, thus eluding the authorities. When the siblings prepare to leave, they quickly realize strange things are afoot at the Circle K, hint hint, as they begin to receive messages from other mysterious time travelers. It seems Sydney and Joseph were not part of the overall plan, and now, in order to return to their time, they have been tasked by these others to kill another wayward time traveler in order to set things right. This new wrinkle causes friction between brother and sister, with Sydney saying something like, I knew this trip was a bad idea. Every time I hang out with you, man, it's some kind of shitstorm. I got guilted into coming out on this trip, and now I'm back in the fucking 80s, and I hate this decade. Hint, hint. Will our time traveling protagonist fail and be stuck in the past, or will they kill this mysterious figure and get back to the future? Well, I will not answer those questions and spoil this movie for you, but I will give you the best review for Things Will Be Different in all the podcast universe, nay, in all of the universe. Now, if this is your first time listening, or if you haven't listened in a while, I do break my reviews down into 3 segments: the good, the bad, and the nitpicky. The good are the things that I like in the movie, the bad, obviously, things that I don't. And the nitpicky, these are things that are neither good, sometimes Hollywoodisms, or sometimes just silly things in these movies that my weird little brain picks up on. And they make me laugh, so I'm going to try to make you laugh, because if there are 2 things I like to do in this world, one of them is business time, and the other one is to make you laugh. So let's go ahead and move into the good of Things Will Be Different.
Sounds pleasant.
Let's start with the cast of the movie, and this is only really 2 people. There are a few other characters that show up mostly towards the end of the movie, but for the most part, we hang out with Sydney and her brother Joseph. Sydney, again, is played by Riley Dandy. What a great name. Riley Dandy. That sounds like something they said in Tombstone or something. I'll be your Riley Dandy. But her brother Joseph is played by Adam David Thompson. And yes, I am reading these off of my phone if you're watching this, but I don't really remember seeing these people in anything else. I looked up their IMDb. Again, I've seen some of the stuff they've been in, but nothing in which they stand out in. So this was really my first time experiencing their performances. I think they do a good job here with this film. They play the brother and sister very well. They do have a bit of a rocky past with each other that involves the law, as it were. But you do learn about Sydney and that she's a mother and she's trying to kind of correct her life. And she's going to use this money to pay off some debts and go chase after her dreams. And Joseph, he is a bartender, and I guess he's just looking to get ahead. And he has this client that offers this house to him. And that's sort of what sets the plan in motion. But again, most of this movie you're going to spend with them because they do have this 2-week period very early on where everything's going great in this house, although they do get bored, and we'll get to some of the direction that I liked in this movie. But yeah, they get very bored, as you would, because there are rules. They can't go far away from the house or something. They have to stay really close to it and stuff like that. So imagine being trapped in a house for 2 weeks when really all you got is a CD player and a VHS and whatever was left there by the people that came before you. So yeah, they do get bored and do a lot of drinking, which naturally you would. Why wouldn't you? I would just stay drunk the whole time. But their relationship really starts to get tested once it is established that they have to do this task for these other time travelers that they talk to, because this takes a very long time. In fact, they're in this house for well over a year, I think, or close to it. So between the boredom and them trying to figure out what's going on, and the fact, like I said, they can't leave this area. They can kind of go in the yard and there's a mill or a barn or something that they can go into, but they can't go into the neighboring city or anything like that. If they cross this line, they start to get very sick and throwing up blood and stuff. So yeah, they're basically trapped with each other, and they've already had some issues in the past, and now they're bored out of their minds, and they just start getting on each other's nerves, waiting for this inevitable traveler to show up, but they just don't know when. So obviously it just plays on them after a while. And you see one of them kind of takes a dark turn, whereas the other one's trying to figure things out so that maybe they can solve it and then get out anyway. So you get a lot of back and forth between the two where, at times they are a brother and sister who love each other and they joke around and, they have fun. And then the other times where they're just at each other's throats and stuff. And I think these 2 actors Riley Dandy and Adam David Thompson, they do a very good job selling that and keeping you invested in these characters. Which leads into my next positive for the movie was the direction of the film. I was a bit surprised. I did, like I said, I found this on Hulu. I saw the trailer. It was time travel stuff. So I was like, all right, this could be fun. Or it could be a complete disaster, which would be fun to talk about one way or the other. So I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed watching this movie on a visual level. I think there's some really cool tricks that Michael Felker does with passages of time. The 2 weeks that they're there at first, it's kind of montage of happy moments and then the boredom and then happy moments and the boredom mixed in with a lot of alcohol. So you kind of feel the monotony of those 2 weeks and the sense of, okay, we're almost there. Let's just get this over with. Let's get to the door and get the hell out of here. And then when you get to the point where they have to stay, he does a really cool trick where the camera sort of moves through these windows, and each window there's like a winter scene, and then it goes into a spring and then summer and fall, and so you see the passage of time. Although he does ruin it for me, because I was like, oh, this is pretty clever. This is a nice way to show that time's passing, and I, as an audience member, understand that they've been in this house a very long time, closing in on a year. But then he puts like 350 something days on there. So I was like, oh, you didn't have to do that. You had me. I knew what was going on. It was really clever until you did that. You went, these people are too stupid to figure that out. But other than that, I really did like the way he showed how time would pass, the isolation in this little house. Again, the boredom. And then I thought he had some fun with the time tricks in the movie, like how they communicate with these other people. I don't think this is really spoiling it, because I think in the trailer it shows it, but there's a point where a board appears on the door and it has messages on it. So it's pretty cool as it goes along at how these people in different times can put the board up, and she tears it down and they put it right back up, or things appear. There's a kitchen where it gets restocked, and they'll like close the refrigerator when it's empty and they open it up and it's restocked by, I guess, someone in the future. I don't know. It gets a little confusing at points. How would that work? At any rate, that's too much for my simple little brain to comprehend. I would think it would have to be someone in the past that would stock it. But yeah, anyway, there's this whole thing with that we'll get into with the rules of this time travel stuff. But I did like the way he played around with that. If they put something here that the other time travelers could, give them supplies or change things around, or again, leave notes, or there's a little tape recorder that they leave that they can communicate with each other with. So again, I thought it was cool how he played around with the time travel elements in the movie. That goes into my next positive. I really did like the premise of the film. It's kind of smart, you know what I mean? You're trying to evade the police. You don't want to go to jail, so you go into this house that can travel basically back. I don't know how many years. They never really established that, but it travels back, and you just hang out there for a couple weeks until everything blows over, and then you come back at that same exact time. Although I did have a question. This is one you can answer for me. If you travel back, like in this movie, they end up being there for like a whole year. But then if you go back to where you left, are you a year older, or are you the same age that you were when you entered the door back in your present time? See, all of these time travel movies, they just raise all of these questions that just drive you crazy when you're watching these movies. I kept thinking, well, how would that work exactly physically? Which you would have to be older, right? That makes sense. All right, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. But yeah, I think that was a very unique premise. That's kind of what drew me to this movie when I saw the trailer. Plus, like I said, I'm a sucker for time traveler movies. But, it was kind of cool to see something different in that regard. And then as they open the time travel world up to us a little bit, again, I think that this movie handles that mostly well. I think, again, it gives you little tricks here and there, but it also keeps you invested with these characters and trying to figure out who is this mysterious person coming and who are these mysterious people they're talking to and what's the overall plan and how is this all going to wrap up? Are they going to get out of there or not? So it generally keeps you invested all the way through, which leads into my final positive. It's only like an hour and 40 minutes long, so you don't have to really be on the edge of your seat that long. And I am always grateful for anything that comes in under 2 hours. So having said that, let's go ahead and move into the bad or the negative of Things Will Be Different.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And really the first negative that's gonna tie back into the positive, I guess, as much as I like the premise and I like the way Michael Felker directed things and kinda had those little time travel elements, reminded me of kind of what was it, Bill and Ted's, where they would be like, "Okay, remember to leave your dad's keys behind the mailbox," or whatever they did. Kinda reminded me of that a lot in this movie, but I kinda like all that stuff, so I was having fun with it. However, and this is something, God, I can't remember the last time travel movie I reviewed, but it had the same problems. I can go along with any time travel movie as long as you establish the rules for me. Like, it could be anything. Like, I mean, the great one that everybody references, and this is a strike against any time travel movie. If you reference Back to the Future and Endgame, you don't get a pass on that. As soon as you reference Back to the Future in your time travel movie, you lose me because that's a movie. That's not science. But what makes Back to the Future so great is that it tells you what the time travel device is, how it works, what it needs, and then that's it. And you're off and running. And it sticks to those rules, right? It's not like Marty traveled back to the past and all of a sudden the DeLorean has to go 95 miles an hour because of the time difference. It just stays within its rules. It lets you know what they are. And now I'm in this world. I've bought into it. I'm fine. Terminator is the same thing. You know, you get established that this machine has come back and Kyle has to save her, and that's just the way it is. There are only two things there, except for the other sequels that come along. But you know, you got to chase a dollar. But yeah, well, if you establish the rules, and it's any good science fiction, if you just establish the rules and follow those rules for me, I'm good. I can accept anything, like the flux capacitor. No, I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what that really is? All I know is that's the device that the DeLorean uses to time travel, and that's how it is in all three movies. So I'm there. This movie, they do a very good job of the time travel stuff for the most part. They do have the rules about going into the room and how they have to do everything, and how, like I said, how things get restocked in the kitchen and how they communicate with each other. But then there are things that happen that start to raise questions. And when you start getting me off on a path where I'm starting to think about, wait, how does this work? How does that work? Now you start losing me in the movie. One of the main ones is they call it the cycle. And again, I don't think that this is a spoiler, but they, like I said, they have this little tape recorder that they can talk into and then they put into this safe. And then when they reopen the safe and they pull it out, the other time travelers have left a response to whatever question they've asked. So that basically they could talk to each other. So then after the first time, I think Joseph, he says something, he puts it in, locks it, and then unlocks it, pulls it out, and he gets an answer. Then he stops putting it in the safe. He just asks a question, and then he hits play, and there's an answer already on there. And when that happened at first, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. And at about the same time, Sydney, the character, says, hey, wait a minute. How does that work? That doesn't make any sense. And Joseph goes, I don't know. It just does. Again, another red flag. This is something that sounds like the writer has written himself, which the writer was Michael Felker. I think that's how you say his last name. Anyway, he was the writer and director, but it sounded like he kind of wrote himself into the corner and just went, oh, well, that's just the way it works. And again, I got to have some rules and time travel stuff. You got to let me know something. You could have made up any kind of bullshit, and I'd have been like, okay, that's fine. As long as you give me an excuse, I'll run with it. I can understand why they did it that way from an audience member standpoint. I wouldn't want to watch him put this tape recorder back in the safe, unlock it, say something, put it in, unlock it, back and forth. That would have got boring and tedious. So then you got to kind of figure something else out in order for that to work instead of, oh, I don't know, it just does work this way. So yeah, that was a major one. When you find out about the mysterious traveler, again, I don't want to spoil that. I don't know. I got a little confused. I thought it was who it was going to be, and I was a bit surprised. I was like, "Oh shit, I was right." And then I started to think, "Wait a minute, what is happening here? What this I don't know what I didn't understand what was going on." And I don't mind some ambiguity in my movies, and this movie does have that, especially as you're closing in on the end. You have things that are there that you're like, "Okay, what is this? Give me something. Give me a little explanation just so I have, like I said, just enough. I don't need an elaborate someone standing there for 45 minutes explaining everything and exposition dumping all this stuff on me. Just a little thread here and there to where I can kind of piece things together. Again, if you see this movie, let me know what you think about the mysterious traveler when they find out. I don't understand how that happened. And then when they reveal the other, I guess they're time travelers or yeah, I'm veering into spoiler stuff. If you watch this movie, let me know these people at the end. I understand kind of what it is. It reminds me of something from the Marvel movies, but it just kind of plays out like, and just, I don't know. I just needed a little bit more information. And then when you get to the end and the resolution of it, again, that makes sense what one character is trying to do, but when you get the final resolution of that, it just raises more question. Like, wait a minute, what is this other character going to do now that this has happened? This it changes everything for this person. Well, again, I'm very vague right now because of spoiler. How about the movie just doesn't really stick the landing, and that seems to happen a lot in Hollywood. And this one kind of gets there because I was really invested for most of this movie. I was interested. I wanted to see what the mysterious traveler was and why they were so important to things and who these other people were that were talking to our heroes. So yeah, I think that's sort of what lets this movie down. Some of the rules with the time travel stuff, and then the end just kind of, I don't want to say stumbles a little bit, but it gets a little convoluted. That's probably the best word for it. That's a big word for me. I might have to look it up to make sure that actually is the right word. So if I edit in anything, if I sound off, what I meant to say was, anyway, so that sort of wraps up the bad or the negative of this movie. So let's go ahead and move into the nitpicky of things will be different.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun on the bun.
And again, these are things that are neither good nor bad, just things that, like Hollywoodisms or silly things in these movies that make me laugh. The first one is a true Hollywoodism, and I swear they must have done this on Mythbusters at some point. I don't know if I could go back and look through all their stuff, but of course, a character gets tied up and they're up against a wall and there's a nail sticking out, so they start to go through the rope with the nail. And of course, they do it in record time. And I always am like, that would take, especially for this movie, because it's kind of a thick rope. And they start going, I mean, they're through it within, I don't know, 30 seconds or whatever. And I'm just like, there's just no way, right? There's no way you could get on, especially on a nail that's sticking out. It would take hours and hours to get through a rope. Somebody has had to have done that at some point to prove how long it takes. But yeah, I would just sit there and watch it. I was like, no, that person might as well just forget it. You're never getting out of there by the time you need to. This movie's gonna be over by the time you get out of that rope. And my next nitpick for the film, and this is when I knew we were in trouble. I kind of think this does fall into a Hollywoodism, but they had to go through this giant cornfield to get to this house. And if there is one thing that I have learned from horror movies, suspense movies, anything like that, is if there's a cornfield that you have to go through, some bad shit is gonna happen. Some kids are gonna jump out and crucify you to a stalk of corn or some shit like that. Stephen King has ruined a lot of traveling for me, as it were. I'm like, no, I can't go near a cornfield. That's gonna end up with me being devoured by some creature that travels between the corn rows while some little kid spouts Bible verses at me. Oh, what a horrible way to die. So yeah, when they started going through that cornfield, I just was yelling at them, just turn around, go back. There's nothing good on the other side of that cornfield. And my final nitpick for the film, and this is the part of the movie where I would have been happy. I probably would have stayed in this little house as long as I possibly could. I would have told the mysterious stranger to just travel around somewhere else for a while. Because as I mentioned, the refrigerator, every time it runs out, they close the door, they open it back up, and voila, it's full of stuff again. The cabinets are the same way. There's food everywhere. There's booze. At one point, they're sending a morphine through something else. I'm like, oh my God. I would have been blitzed out of my mind, and I probably would have put on about 300 pounds just in this house over 1 year. I would have gorged myself on whatever they put in that refrigerator and washed it down with the Jim Beam in the cabinet. And then used the morphine to pass the time. So yeah, I was really excited about this house. I would have been happy to live there the rest of my life. I don't know if that's what the movie was going for, but I would have been content. You had a VCR? I mean, come on. All my best memories are from VCRs and VHS tapes with no labels on them. Those were always the best ones. So overall, my thoughts on things will be different. really do have a tough time with the title of this movie. I keep wanting to say something will be different, but it's things will be different. But if you don't know, I usually grade these types of movies on streaming services on a curve because I don't really have high expectations going into these movies. Plus, I didn't have to do anything. I just sat on a couch and hit a button. I didn't have to drive to the movie theater and deal with a bunch of people and all that bullshit. And as I mentioned, I think in my last review, maybe the one before that, yeah, I'm trying to be nicer to these movies. I really am. I kind of was editing one of my episodes. I was like, I don't think the movie was that bad. Maybe I should kind of ease up a little bit. So again, I went into this really no expectations, just kind of hoping to be entertained. And it does that. I think the performances are good. I think the concept is good. The premise of the movie. I think the tricks that they do pull off with the time travel stuff are a lot of fun. It keeps you interested. They have the whole mystery of this other traveler and these other people they're talking to, and you got to figure out who they are. You're trying to, at any rate, until you get a little disappointed by the end of the movie. But overall, I was into the movie. It entertained me. I mean, what more could you ask for from a movie on Hulu that I'd never heard of before? So I will tell you, if you like time travel movies, something like this, if it sounds interesting to you, go check it out. It's worth a watch for an hour and 40 something minutes. I will tell you again, some of the stuff that stuck out was the time travel rules kind of get a little fuzzy here and there. And then the ending, I just don't think it quite stuck the landing for me. I understand kind of what they were going for in some regards, but some stuff I did. I'm not going to say I'm the smartest person in the world, but I did get a little confused by a few things. So overall, I would say if you got a little time to kill, check out Things Will Be Different on Hulu. So let's see. On my next episode, I will be reviewing Mickey 17. I think that's coming out this weekend. There's also this other movie coming out with John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush. Kind of a horror movie, I think, or something. So I don't know. You might get a few extra episodes coming up in the nearest future. I don't know. It depends on how much time I've got this week. I got a few other plans as well. So at any rate, you are definitely getting Mickey 17 or Mikey 17, whatever the hell the name of that movie is. It's a sci-fi movie from, I can't remember the director's name, I can't remember his name, from Parasite. That's easy enough. So I'm looking forward to that. So I will have that out probably by Sunday. So if you're still listening, then I must have done something right. And if I did, if you could please, again, follow the show, subscribe to the show, give me a rating or review. I'd greatly appreciate it. It does help the show. Follow me on my social media. Share the show on your social media or with all your friends and family and whoever else you want to tell, strangers on the street. Hey, if you have a crush on somebody and you're nervous to talk to them, here's something for you. Just be like, hey, I found this new podcast. Do you like movies? This guy is awesome. He might be the best podcaster. No, he is the best podcaster in the history of podcasts. You can lay it on pretty thick for me. Don't go too high though, because then I won't live up to those those high standards. Speaking of high standards, I tell everyone I know I've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast universe. Hell, now all the YouTube universe. And you never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing to the cosmos, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.